when we do chanting a mantra, observe people who chant mantra every day. Those people who chant mantra, even they receive highest yoga tantra initiation from masters, and then they can do yamataka every day. They can do chakra samvara every day, hiruka or vajragini every day, or kala chakra. If they simply recite mantras to fulfill their commitments, their sadhana every day, they say, oh, I have a sadhana to do, I need to do it, and they just simply chant the mantra. They fulfill the commitment that they have sworn to their lamas, and there's some benefit there. Many years ago, I consulted with my Dharma protector in Gandhin, and he told me definitely there's some benefit there. But attainments will not arise. So if we check our mind, those of us who cannot put others before ourselves first. Those of us who cannot put others before ourselves first, this kind of mind arises in many times as symptoms. Symptoms. So those people who have a lot of self-cherishing mind, they have a lot of symptoms.
所以那些很执着于我爱的人，他们会有一些症状出现。
We can't look into people's minds. I cannot look into people's minds. Only an enlightened being can look into our mind clearly, past, and present, clearly, and the future. Why the future? Because of what we've done in the past, it will bring about the future. So an enlightened being can perceive your future.
所以只有那些已经觉悟的人他们可以看到未来，因为他们所做的那些过去可以预知到未来。
So therefore, an enlightened being can see the past. Enlightened being can see your present and why your present is so, and can see your future. And the reason is because they have unobstructed omniscience.
所以那些觉悟的人，他们可以看得到未来。这其中的原因是因为他们有一个全知的这个能力，是没有被任何东西给阻碍的。
So for us, we cannot see people's mind, so it's very difficult to tell what's going on in their mind. Similarly, a doctor cannot see a disease, but by symptom and talking about the symptom and observing the symptom, a doctor can see the person's disease. A Dharma practitioner can see the other person's symptoms or their afflictions.
所以就如同一个医生他是透过看那个病人的症状而了解这个病人的苦因在哪里。同样的一个修行的人，他可以看到这个人他们所受的这个苦 ，OK， 透过他们的所受的这个苦，可以看的症状的显现，而去决定说他的苦因在哪里。
Only a few symptoms can arise, just like diseases. Only a few symptoms can arise, but the cause of it can be different. Example: if we have a fever, it can be something very serious, such as cancer, tuberculosis, or it can be something light as a cold, or it can be something mediocre, such as a flu. But all of those will exhibit a fever.
所以这个症状可能是一样的，但是这个症状的苦因这个起因可能是不一样的。就如同一个人他发烧，那这个苦因可能是他得了肺结核，但是也有可能是其他比较小型的一些病状。所以这个病的这个症状可能是一样的，但是这个原因可能不一样，起因是不一样。
So like that, our elements in our body can only go a certain amount of combinations to create a certain amount of diseases. So the symptoms are very few though, because it's only pain or fever or sharpness or numbness or no feeling or paralysis. There can be only a few symptoms that can lead to hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of diseases. Why? That's the way the body can manifest.
所以我们的身体它的那个是由一些特别的那个因素所组成的。那这些因素它们结合起来只会显现出某一些症状。但是同样的这个起因是可能会有上百上千的一些原因出现。
So therefore, similarly with the mind, if someone studies what Lord Buddha has taught according to the mind, you become like a doctor for the mind or the doctor of the emotions. And so you can observe people and you can check back with what you've studied according to what Buddha said, and then therefore pretty much gauge what type of mind that person has according to observing their symptoms time and time again.
所以就如同医生一样，他就好像是一个修行人，他也是如同一个医生。为什么？因为他看到这个人的那个所受的这个苦因，就好像一个医生在看待一个病人一样，所以他可以所以这个是一个比喻。
So by observing people's speech, by observing people's body actions, by observing people's likes and dislikes, you can very much tell by those symptoms what type of mind they have and what level they're at.
所以一个修行人或者是一个上师，他看一个人的身口意，他的尤其是他的所说的话，他基本上就可以去诊断或判断出这个人他的那个心是在什么样的一个程度，而去做出一个去帮助这个人。
Some of us know our own mind.
有一些人他们知道自己的心处在何处。
Some of us don't know our own mind.
有些人没有办法看到这一些。
Some of us require other people to tell us about our own mind.
有些人他必须透过其他人来告诉我们的心在哪里。
Some of us is a combination.
有些人他是这两个的一个结合。
Sometimes even people we don't like may point out to us the type of mind we have.
有一些人我们可能不喜欢，但是他们可以指出我们的心在哪里。
Whether a person we like or we don't like, or ourselves or someone inside or outside points out something about our mind, then definitely there are some symptoms there.
所以不管是我们喜欢不喜欢的人，或者是我们自己所看到自己的心在何处不管怎么样，这里头一定有一些症状让人家去指出来。
So therefore, if there are symptoms to be observed, and the symptoms are manifest, it's very important not to debate or to argue with yourself or with others whether you are really what your symptoms show that you are. Why? Because when people observe, they can see people with experience, older people or people who have studied, they can observe, they can tell you, it is not whether you are or you're not. Those symptoms are being observed.
所以当人家指出你有这些症状的时候，这个重点不是在于你到底有没有这些问题，而是说这个症状的确存在，所以人家才会指出来。
If the symptoms of a self-cherishing mind is allowed to continue year after year after year, then if someone only cherish themselves, then definitely the unhappiness that arises for themselves and people around them will increase with age and with time.
所以当我们自己有一些强烈我爱的时候，就是很爱惜自己的时候，这样的一个症状的出现的时候，那随着时间的累积，它会越来越强大。
As a human being, since we have the capacity that's higher than an animal, the logic and the perception and also the intelligence that's higher than an animal, then we must, as human beings, always strive to improve our mind.
所以身为人类，我们比一般的畜生跟动物道我们比他们来的高级，因为我们有判断能力，我们有逻辑思考的这个能力，所以我们应该比起他们，我们更应该珍惜这个，而去想办法去改变我们的心事。
In every society, ancient and new, there's some kind of ritual for leaving when one reaches puberty, or one reaches an age where one becomes an adult. There's always some kind of ceremony or rite from childhood to adulthood. And that's irregardless of religion.
所以在古时代一个人从他儿时的时候到他年长的这个过程当中，这个转变的时期，他会有一个类似宗教性的一个仪式。那这个东西是普遍性的，不是因为它不是属于宗教性的。
Example, in the Chinese system, as far as I understand, people always ask if you're married or not married. And the reason for you to get married is not only to bear children to carry on the name. It's also a sign of one has passed the passage of childhood to adulthood and ready to take responsibility. To repay the kindness back of one's parents, instead of taking from one's parents, instead of taking from society, instead of taking from people around you, it's time to give back. It's time to support others. It's time to support people who've been kind to you. It's also time for you to make decisions, for us to control our emotions and control our anger and control our unhappiness and control our jealousies. Why? Because these emotions make us not responsible and mature and create problems. So when in Chinese, when they say married, there's a very deep meaning. The deep meaning is that you are passing the right from childhood to adulthood. Meaning, instead of expecting others to give you, you give. Instead of other people to take care of you, you take care. Instead of other people always to coddle you or to nurture you, you start to nurture. So getting married in a Chinese system is an indirect way of saying, grow up, take responsibility, become mature.
所以尤其是在中国人的传统里面，这个从一个少年到一个大人一个成人的这个阶段，就是中国人最喜欢讲就是结婚。为什么结婚？因为他们期望你在结婚之后，你会开始承担你的一个人该负担的这个责任，然后他会控制自己的情绪，不会让愤怒的心情随时爆发出来，而且他也不会造成其他人的困扰，造成人家的问题，然后你会开始给予其他人一些东西，而不是期待人家给予你东西。然后你会开始去照顾他人的感受，而不是期待人家来照顾你的感受。然后这就是总结来说，这就是一个成长的过程，这就是你开始去承担你该承担的这个义务。
Keeping clean.
把周围的这个地区
Brushing our teeth.
刷牙。
Wearing clean clothes.
穿干净的衣服。
Keeping our body clean.
把身体照顾得很干净。
Those are things that are told to us when we're young. But when we're mature and grown up, if people have to tell us to brush, to clean, to wash, we haven't passed from childhood to adulthood.
这些东西在我们年少的时候是人家来告诉我们的。假如你已经到了年长的时期，你已经是大人的时候、成人的时候，但是还要靠人家来说的话，这就是一个很不好的现象。
When we are like that, we embarrass ourselves, we embarrass our parents, we embarrass our friends, we embarrass our husband and wives, we embarrass our partners, we embarrass general people around us. Why do we embarrass? Because it's not a matter of just clean or not clean. It is a symptom that the mind has not grown up or mature. It's a symptom, clear symptom.
所以当人家还得告诉我们这样子的时候，这是非常令人感到其实是蛮害羞的一件事情，因为这就代表你没有你的症状还是很强烈的显现出来，你还是需要人家来指点你。虽然你已经到了成人的阶段，而且你带给你的家人、你的妻子、你的家庭造成很大的困扰。
And certain habits that we have that might be harmful to others and ourselves, if in childhood we have not been told and we have not matured to understand it, and in adulthood people have to tell us, oh, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. If we continuously do it, and we do it again and again and again, to make people around us unhappy, angry, not respect us, and not like us, then this is another symptom that our mind didn't grow up from child to adult.
所以如果在年少的时候我们没有学到这一点，然后到了成人的阶段的时候，我们不停的在犯错，不停的在需要人家来指出我们的这些问题，然后说我们没有承担我们该承担的这个义务，那这就是很强烈的显现出一个很强烈的症状，就是我们还没有成长，还没有完全的成长出来。
That's just an example in everyday life for every human being. in every society, every culture. That's just a normal example. That's not anyone who's taking on the religious path. That is just a normal person who wishes to get a job, who wishes to advance in life, who wishes to do better, who wishes to be able to support themselves and have some nice car or nice house or something. Just normal people, ordinary people, not spiritual, should do that. And if they do that, they're able to obtain some comfortable things in this life.
这个东西只是在一个很平常的一个层次上来讲，而不是因为我们现在是在针对一个宗教性的课题，就是很平常日常生活中就应该做到的。OK 为什么？因为当你能做到这一点的时候，你就会有一个很平稳的生活，你可以有你想要的车子、你的生活等等。这只是一个很平常的这个层次来谈。
Without religion, just normal human mature wisdom can teach us how to make our mind better and how to check our symptoms in normal way.
所以就以最平常的这个层次，撇开宗教不谈，就我们基本上就可以以这样的一个可以看出我们自己的症状，而去决定 OK 我们的生活我们的层次在哪里，就是以最平常的这个角度来看。
So when we enter religion, spiritual practice, we should already be a mature, intelligent adult who has already become grown up, who already, the basics of life, cleaning, washing, grooming, talking nice, and not having other people to repeat to us the same thing over and over. Just before we enter religion, we should already have those qualities. Already should have. Why? This is not a religious practice. This is human being practice. Human being.
所以在我们当我们要开始谈到宗教的这个层次的时候，其实身为人，我们其实就应该在刚才我们所谈的这个平常的这个层次，就应该已经达到成熟跟独立的这个个性。我们要学会去照顾自己的身体，我们要学会去刷牙，然后让自己体现出干净的一面。就在我们还没有谈到宗教的时候，我们就应该做到这一点了。
Someone who's entered university, they go to KDU or KBU, they still don't know how to read. And when they go there and people still have to teach them how to read, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, they still don't know how to read. Definitely you think they're not here to learn. And they haven't learned. They're here for another motive, another reason, maybe pass the time, maybe they're bored, maybe their parents have some influence, just get them in there to keep them away. But if they're in college, they cannot read, then what happened? Some more in college, if they don't push themselves to learn how to read, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, they're still the same. Then they're not here in the college to learn. This is a normal life, not religious.
就好像你进入学院一样，我们已经期望说你在进入学院的时候，你已经有阅读的能力。但是有些人他进来，他还是没有阅读的能力，1年、2年、3年，他还是没有心去学习。那就如同刚才上师所指的这个比喻是一样的。所以这样的话，基本上你进来你没有阅读的能力还没关系，但是你1、2、3年之后，你还是同样的没有兴趣去学习阅读。那就跟刚刚我们所提的这个例子是一样的。
Religious practice teaches us things that normal human knowledge and wisdom cannot teach us. 1. Religious practice teaches us that in normal human life, when we have the symptoms of a selfish mind, this selfish mind is not religious at all. That's normal human. When we have the symptoms of a selfish mind, and by normal human ways, our parents advise us, our friends advise us, our peers advise us, our school teachers advise us, and still we cannot change ourselves by normal human ways, then we need religious ways to tackle and to attack the selfish mind. And also, after that, higher knowledge that makes our mind even more open that we cannot get in a normal human wisdom, human way, we need religious practice. So when we enter religious practice, it is understood you know how to read, like when you enter college.
所以心灵上的修行，牵扯到宗教上的修行的时候，它有2点。第一点就是它教会了我们，基本上一些世俗的一些观念或者是教育没有办法给予我们的。第二种就是当世俗的教育方法，它教会我们去对治我们的比较自私的一面，譬如生活伦理等等，还是没有办法改变我们成为一个更好的人的时候，那这个时候心灵上的修行，它可以带给我们更大的改变。
So if you have a very selfish mind, you only think about yourself, you don't care about other people's feeling, you don't care if you hurt other people, you don't care if you irritate other people, you don't care if you actually make people lose respect in you, you don't care if you embarrass yourself and your family and your name and your own surroundings. You don't care that you embarrass. Then the parents or the teacher or our friends would say, hey, if you do that, you're not going to get a good job. Because in job, if you do like that, you cannot get a good job. If you cannot get a good job, you cannot take care of your family. Maybe to you, your family, you don't care. You expect your mother to give you everything. Then some people say, oh, you cannot get a nice car. Then maybe for you, you don't care you have a nice car or not because you don't care. Maybe you cannot get a nice house or something. Or even if you have a husband or you have a wife, you cannot take care of your husband or wife. Still, you don't care because you expect people to take care of you. And so when you have that kind of thinking, and it's very, very strong, and it's very firm, that kind of selfish mind is very, very hard. So by normal means, parents and teachers, by materialistic means, to teach you if you do like that, you cannot get this, you cannot get this, you cannot have that. If that doesn't work, then you need to seek religious help. Why? Religious help goes higher. It doesn't talk about getting a car. It doesn't talk about getting a house. It doesn't talk about getting respect. It talks about higher knowledge that perhaps will motivate us to change ourselves. Why is it higher? Because a lot of us think it's only 67 years I'm alive. I don't care if I have a nice car. I don't care if I take care of my mother and father. That's bad, but we can think like that. Can think, I don't care if people respect me or not. I look clean or not. I don't care. Why? I'm around for 67 years. I do as I like, and I have personal freedom. But the thing is, so if that one doesn't motivate you to transform and change and become better, those are normal methods. So you're not materialistic. You don't respect society. You don't care about your own culture. You don't care about embarrassing yourself and other people. You don't care about that. So that doesn't motivate you to change. Then you go to religion. Religion doesn't talk about these things. Religion talks about much higher knowledge that should motivate you to change. Example, if you're undisciplined, if you're unclean, it teaches you that when you pray, actually the Buddhas come. When the Buddhas come and you're clean and you're presentable, it's an offering to the Buddhas. It's an offering. Why? It's an offering to someone very high. So you have this kind of higher thinking. Instead of mommy and daddy telling you, oh, if your mouth smells, if you're not clean, people don't like you. You say, I don't care about people. But next level is Buddhas, you don't care also? That's one. Second is, if you don't push yourself and become responsible, maybe in a normal way, oh, I don't care about car, I don't care about money, I don't care about this. I don't care. I'm very simple. Okay. But in a religious way, if you don't take responsibility, how can you practice the art of giving or generosity? If you don't practice the art of generosity and giving, how do you expect in this life for you to have the karma to become better, and in your future lives to have the karma to have very good situation? Money, health, to be born in a nice place, to have easy sustenance. How can you have that? So Dharma teaches you a higher motivation to transform yourself that a normal world doesn't. So if in normal world we're still lazy and smelly and we don't care and we're irresponsible, but when we reach Dharma, it gives you bigger knowledge, a bigger motivation to change. But if you're in Dharma, still you don't change, then there's no higher knowledge to give you. Then the only knowledge left is the result of your own karma coming back to you. And then when you suffer very much, until the karma finish, you cannot do anything anymore. So it becomes a punishment. And for some people, it becomes like that. So when we enter religious practice, my point is this, it is used to transform ourselves. That's why religion, we don't harm others. We don't criticize others. And if we're doing religious practice, irresponsibility, cleanliness, unselfishness should be goals that we try to achieve. Then we're religious. Then we're spiritual. Otherwise, if we're in religion and we don't do that, then we're not here to change. Just like if we don't know how to read in college, we're not in college to learn. Then if we're not in college to learn, if we're not in religion to change, why are we here?
所以先从一般世俗的这个观点来
You say it the way you like.
Yes. 所以就从世俗上的观点来看，我们假如有一个很强大的自私的这个心态在作祟的时候，最大的这个症状就是我们根本不在乎我们对于别人的这个影响，我们会造成很多人的困扰，但在这个过程当中，我们一点都不在乎。所以这个是在世俗的这个观点来看，那基本上就是说，我们对这个社会的一些价值，我们生活的这个一些伦理、一些价值观，我们一点都不在乎。这是以比较世俗的观点看。那这个时候，以宗教的角度来看，它可以提供我们一个更大的一个动机去改变我们这个自私的心态。为什么？因为我们可以透过祈祷，透过那个向诸佛菩萨祈愿的时候，比如说第一点，我们可以是把桌子打理得很干净，把房子整理得很干净。为什么？因为这个是对诸佛的一个供养。第二点就是我们理解到业的这个因果的这个重要，所以这样子的话，我们就会学习去更学会去布施，学会去改变自己自私的这个心态。为什么？因为我们知道我们必须学会布施，不然这个后果这个因果会很严重。所以这是第二点。那假如我们连这个宗教上的这个力量我们都没有去利用它，就是给我们一个很大的这个动机去改变自己的话，那唯一剩下来的结果就是接下来我们所留下来的就只有业，只有因果，它会回来反映在我们身上，所以我们必须承担这些业的这个后果。这就是剩下来的结果，没有其他的了，因为你没有去利用宗教性的这个力量。所以这就等于好像是一种惩罚。那最后，宗教是用来改变我们的心灵，这是上师所说的。就好像你进了学院，你进了 college， 但是你没有好好利用这个学习的环境。同样的，你现在有一个宗教的这个修行的这个道场这个环境，那么你就应该好好的利用它，就好像你进学院一样。
So, even if we don't care in a normal way, normal knowledge that motivates us to change, even if we don't care about that, then we have to go to the next step and have Dharma knowledge that's much wider, that gives us more knowledge, which should motivate us bigger and more and wider to transform. That's why spiritual people usually are more patient and more calm and more have endurance and don't give up easy. Why? Because they have bigger knowledge that backs up that kind of human spirit. Not to give up, to have patience, to be generous, to be kind. They're able to do that. Why? They have more knowledge. They have much more knowledge. So when they have more knowledge, they have more motivation to have those qualities. So in normal situation, if we don't have motivation to be nice, why? There are people who can be nice to others in normal, not religious, normal situation, where they're very nice to another person because they want business. It doesn't matter. Outwardly, they look nice. They'll be loyal, they'll be kind, they'll be polite, they'll help people. Why? They want business. In any case, that person's nice. It's still nice, still pleasant. So if we want to go higher, we don't want to do that just with a motive. We want to do that for a higher reason, to develop our mind. So if we are nice to people, to develop our mind, naturally the business comes. And we reach another level in our mind. Why? Because we have higher knowledge. We have higher knowledge to motivate us to become better. So by lower knowledge, normal human wisdom, lower knowledge. Why is it lower? Because it only looks for happiness in this life. We cannot change. And in higher knowledge, we cannot change. Then we should go a third way. I like Dharma. I like spiritual practice. I like to be with spiritual people. So if I'm nice to them and I respect them and I don't tease them, I don't hurt them, they will be nice to me and I like to stay. So even in that way, we must transform. But if any way we don't transform, we don't change, then it shows us the symptoms of how strong our selfish mind is. So if our selfish mind is very strong, think very clearly. In this world, who respects a selfish person? No one. Who really respect? Even other selfish people don't respect other selfish people. So who in this world respect a selfish person? So if no one respects a selfish person and then people don't respect us, how can we get angry or get back at people? We created that. So when we're selfish and when people react to us, they don't respect us. They don't listen to us. They don't want to help us. They don't care about us. They put us down. And then we react back negatively. They react back negatively to us and back and forth, back and forth. We are the cause. We did it. So by religious means, we cannot change. By spiritual means, we cannot change. So when negative situations come back to us, we have to forbear. We have to accept. Why? Because that's what we caused. That is what we caused. So therefore, it's called taking responsibility. You can take responsibility the normal way, by worldly wisdom, or you can take it the higher way. But in the end, it's responsibility. Responsibility for what? For your speech, for your way of talking, your demeanor, your appearance, for how you make other people feel. And that's very important. So if we don't understand that, we don't know that, then even in our families, we cannot influence people near us. We cannot influence them. Ever. Why? Because we're bad? No. We are not tackling what is bad in us. We are not bad, but we have some bad. So we cannot transform the people around us. We cannot transform the people we love. Even very selfish people have people they love. So when the problems and difficulties come, most selfish people will do more actions to make more problems for other people. It just escalates. Why? That is their habit.
所以上次提到心灵上的修行上的一些知识，它是属于更高层次的这个知识，比起世俗上的一些知识。为什么？因为心灵上的这些知识，它能够修行上的这些知识，它能够带给我们，让我们学会更学会忍辱，更学会忍耐他人的不是，我们不会随随便便轻易放弃。而且我们会学会非常的很有耐心对于其他人，所以心灵上的修行，它能够带给我们更高层次的动机。这个动机就是去改变我们的心，改变我们成为一个更好的人。那比起世俗上，它的层次的，它的这个动机就属于比较低的层次。假如说我们以世俗上的这个知识，它没有办法改变我们，那我们就到下一个比较高的层次，就是透过宗教，透过修行。那假如连宗教上的这些知识，像我们对于佛法的这些理解，它也没有办法改变我们的话，那有第三种方法。这第三种方法就是，你可以想说，我很喜欢我喜欢在道场里面服务，我喜欢跟我的道友他们在一起，这个感觉很不错。但是假如你自己的这个很自私的心非常非常强的时候，你要怎么样去得到其他人对你的一种尊重？这是不可能的。所以到头来，当事情发生的时候，一个很强烈、很自私的人，他会把这个事情严重化，而且让它越来越扩张出来，他没有办法去处理这件事情，然后最后他就必须理解他是这所有事情的起因，他造成了这些事情的发生。 所以最后他所能做的就是他去承担这件事情的后果。这个就是去承担，这个就是上司所讲的taking responsibility， 去承担这个责任。这个责任就是你必须去承担人家如何对待你，如何看待你，而不是去把矛头指向他人，因为你是这所有事情的起因，你造成了这些事情的发生。
The results of a good human being, not religious, is a person who takes responsibility. The results of a spiritual person is one that takes responsibility. The results of a normal human being that just listens to words of their parents or elders or teachers, the result will be responsibility. If we take responsibility, we will have a nice car. We will have a house. We don't need to depend on other people. And we will make our family and ourselves and our friends happy, and friends will come to us more and more and more. We will have that kind of result. Real friends. If we take responsibility in spiritual practice, and we practice it over the years, you will see. You become someone that's very tolerant. You become someone that your speech, whether it's wrathful or peaceful, soft or nice, will benefit other people. You will become a person who is very giving and who has no problems to give and who looks for opportunities to give in order to bring some relief or happiness to other people. You'll become someone who has wisdom. Wisdom meaning what? To know what is right and wrong and to bring about the correct results now and in the future. You'll be someone who does not give up. Then no one needs to encourage you. No one. You will not give up yourself. You will not give up your purpose, what you're supposed to do. Other beings, you will never give up. Why? You have developed those qualities. So like that, if we take responsibility as a normal human being with no religion can see the symptoms. The symptoms of a person who takes responsibility is they have a nice house, they can pay their bills, they have a nice car. Even nice car doesn't mean Mercedes or BMW. It'd be a nice Proton that runs, is safe, no danger to our family, to our husband and wife, to our kids. Just a nice car. And a normal human being who takes responsibility can do the highest service. They can serve their parents. They can serve their mother and their father. If our mother and father have passed away, we can still serve them by being good people. Because when people see us, they'll know our mother and father was good. And if our mother and father is alive due to our good merits, even the protector told us a long time ago, recently, giving a glass of water, as simple as giving a glass of water to our parents, to our mother, to our father, will collect tremendous merit. Why? Because of their kindness to us. So, as a responsible person in a normal sphere of life, if we take responsibility, we can have material things that are comfortable. It doesn't mean rich or poor. It's not. It's we are materially comfortable and we are materially independent. And we have the greatest honor. We can help and serve and take care of our mother and our father. This is the highest in the human realm. The highest. In every society that has principle, they will follow that. In the Chinese society, filial piety is the highest. Because before Dharma or any form of religion came to China, their highest form of societal respect was taking care of one's mother and father. So therefore, we can see that this is not a religious practice. This is for normal beings. Take care of elderly people. Take care of older people to make sure they're comfortable. To make sure they have what they need. Why? We will reach that. And they didn't ask to be taken care of. They have reached a point in their life they need some help. So it's our duty to do so. So that's in normal human sphere. In spiritual sphere, when we take responsibility, working hard for others is not a difficulty. Not giving up is effortless. Developing compassion, the wish with no motive to bring benefit to others will be spontaneous. And one's paramita of giving, just giving, will be effortless. You will not worry and think. Why? Because you have higher thought already. Higher thought. Therefore, if we take responsibility in the normal sphere of life, people respect. If we take responsibility in the spiritual sphere of life, it covers the normal and it covers the extras. So taking responsibility is one of the major keys to life and to religious practice. Therefore, if we practice taking responsibility, we will see our mind grow and open, and many problems we make will definitely go away. Definitely. And all the things that we want will come very easily. Respect. Everybody wants respect. Care. And also reliability. And also a sense of security. If we don't have that, we have not taken responsibility. That's the core of human life. And if you do spiritual practice, the core is responsibility. And as I mentioned, the symptoms are there. The symptoms of spiritual practice, of responsibility, is you have compassion. Some degree. Like Kuan Yin one, for us, not yet, but we have some degree. And over the years of practicing Dharma, you'll see your compassion increase. You will see your generosity increase tremendously. You will see your wisdom increase. What is the wisdom? Knowing what's right and wrong. You don't need to ask other people. You already know. You will see your patience increase. What's patience? Patience is when things become difficult, you do not react back to make things even more difficult. Those qualities will increase. So in normal life and in spiritual life, if we take responsibility, you will have symptoms to observe you have those qualities. It's very important to see.
所以，当我们提到现在上师所提的重点就是承担自己该承担的这个义务。就世俗的这个角度来看，世俗的这个伦理当我们开始学会去承担的时候，自己的责任的时候，跟义务的时候，我们就会在生活上得到很多利益，很多很舒适的一些环境。例如，我们会有车子，我们会有房子，我们为自己的生活带来便利。这个是当我们开始为自己的生命去学会去负责的时候，那第二个就是当我们学会承担的时候，我们就会懂得如何去孝顺父母。那在这个过程当中，我们就会赢得他人对我们的一种尊敬。那当我们提到就心灵层面来讲，就宗教的这个层面来讲，当我们学会承担的时候，我们就会培养出一些特别的一些特质，人格上的特质。第一个就是我们会学会忍辱，我们会学会培养出我们的耐心。第二个就是我们所说的这个言语会带给他人很大的这个利益。第三个就是我们学会很轻易的就学会布施，不会去多做思考，为什么要布施，而是很自然的就会学会布施。再来就是我们会培养出我们的智慧，我们知道如何去判断对与错，很轻易的就会做出正确的决定。最后就是我们不会轻易的放弃他人，不会放弃其他的人。就如同我们的护法 Protector， 他曾经在最近的这个时候，他有说过，当我们即便是供养一个清水给我们的父母亲，都是无量的功德。为什么？因为没有他们，就没有今天的我们。所以，当你供养一杯清水给你的父母亲的时候，也是有很大的功德。那在心灵层面上来讲，在深一层来说，它可以有一些症状可以看得出我们在心灵修行上有一定的程度，有一定的成果。 第一个就是当我们培养出我们慈悲的时候，它这个慈悲的流露是很自然的，它是很突发性的，它不是好像很造作这样子的。第二种就是当你在布施的时候，也是就像我所说的它是很容易的，它不需要多做思维。再来就是你的智慧，它会很自然的就增长。这些都是当你有这个特质的显现出来的时候，这就代表这个人他有放他的心思去培养自己的心灵上的修行。那刚刚上次所提到的重点，就是在不管是世俗或者是心灵上或者是精神上的这个修行，最主要的就是我们要学会去承担。因为在世俗上，当你学会承担的时候，你会赢得他人的尊敬，而且你自己的生活也会改善。那么在心灵的修行上的时候，精神上的修行，当你学会去承担的时候，你就会自然而然培养出慈悲跟智慧。所以这里头就是所带出来的重点，就是一个人要学会承担，这样在精神上的生活上，一般生活上跟在精神层面上都会有很大的帮助。
When we have the symptoms, how much we deny, or how much we avoid, or how much we cover, the symptoms can be covered or denied or pushed away temporarily, but the disease will become bigger.
当我们的症状出现的时候，我们可以学会去隐瞒它，或者是去反抗它，不要去承认它的存在。但是当你这样做的时候，这个症状它会扩张出来，它不会消失。
So if we have something serious and we have fever because of that, so we take Panadol, it can work. Few weeks, few months. Then as we only take care of the symptoms, but then the disease becomes bigger, maybe even Panadol don't work anymore.
所以例如当我们发烧的时候，我们可以选择去吃Panadol 一些药物上来控制，但是这些药物只能控制你的症状，它没有去对治你的苦因，所以可能到了一个阶段，你吃再多的药也没有帮助。
Similarly, in spiritual symptoms, if we're angry and we cover, we always think about ourselves first. We don't care about others. We give up very easy, and we need other people to talk to us all the time. Temporarily, people talk to us, it's okay. Talk to us, it's okay. Talk to us, it's okay. Temporarily, we give up, then okay. We give up, then okay. Then people talk to us. Temporarily, we get angry, then people say, never mind, maybe bad day. Then they get angry again, maybe bad day. Maybe angry again, why? But if we keep doing this, pretty soon, no one will talk to us. No one will give us a chance. And no one will respect us. And no one will even go near us. Even those who have great compassion and care cannot help us. So what happens is because the disease, the self-cherishing mind, become very big already. Be very, very big.
同样的道理，当我们谈到心灵上的、精神层面上的这个症状的时候，它可以显现出来。例如，你是一个很容易生气的人，你有很强烈的愤怒的心在里头，然后你不在乎别人怎么看待你，你有一个很强烈的自私的心态。当这个症状出现的时候，就如同刚刚所说的，你可以吃药的道理一样，可能周边的人他会很友善对待你，他会对你很婉转的告诉你怎么样怎么样，或者给你给你一些心灵上的一些指示。但是当你一直接受，但是你把它当成是一个好像占人家便宜，你没有真正去改变，而是只是一味的在接受人家的这些婉转的告诫的时候，其实到了一个阶段，到了一个时间的时候，人家就没有办法再忍受下去了，他们就不会理你。不管这个人有多大的慈悲心，他也是有他的忍耐，也是有他的这个限度。当这件事情发生的时候，这个症状本身已经到了可以说是无可救药，因为你的 强烈的这个我爱啊 ，self cherishing 的这个心是非常非常强大，这个症状已经没有办法，其他人也帮不了你了。
Self-cherishing is no matter how the people who love me feel, no matter how the people who have been kind to me feel, no matter how new people feel, my feeling is more important. What I want is more important. What I desire is more important than everyone. And that feeling is self-cherishing. When that feeling becomes very strong, then all that we have that is good will become bad. When it becomes bad, we experience the unhappiness. When we experience an unhappiness, this will feed our anger. Our anger will become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
那到底什么是我爱的心呢？当别人对你很好的时候，不管这个人对你，他对于你来讲可能是一个很重要的，他对你的再怎么样的好，但是你总是只是考虑到自己，我的感受是最重要的我不管其他人对我的感受，我只在乎我自己的感受。当这个心很强烈的时候，到后来你本来很好的一些 quality， 很好的一些特质，一些个性，到最终都会变成不好的。到这个时候，唯一留下来的只有不快乐，非常的忧郁，然后这个不快乐会转变成一种愤怒，这个愤怒就会显现出来。
Anger, motivated or arising from self-cherishing mind, only brings destruction, self-destruction. Anger motivated by self-cherishing mind only brings destruction. To the biggest kings and ministers in the world, to normal people, to even the poor, and even animals that are very selfish and very destructive, we also don't like. Example, snakes. Who likes snake? So anything that is extremely selfish is a very destructive person. Why are they destructive? Everything that can be good, they destroy. Other people's love, care, security, they destroy. When they destroy that, anger becomes much bigger. When anger becomes bigger, it feeds the self-cherishing mind. The self-cherishing mind feeds the anger feeds the self-cherishing mind, and it goes back and forth to the point where when you even reach a certain age, you cannot control yourself anymore, and people don't want to be around you. And no matter how you try, you will feel unhappiness. Why? Because your self-cherishing mind and your anger rules. Even you don't want to, it rules. And that's very, 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 very dangerous. That anger is what makes people stay away from us, push away opportunities, make us, even the most handsome or the beautiful person, makes them very unpleasant looking. Anger, motivated by self-cherishing mind, hurts the people we love very much. It hurts them until they become numb, or dead, or they go away. Anger that arises from the self-cherishing mind even cuts our chances to help people that we love very much. Example can be our husband and wife, or our children, or our family that we love very much and we want to bring them to the Dharma. No chance. Why? Our anger is very strong. Very strong. So therefore, anger, motivated by self-cherishing, arising from not taking responsibility, is our biggest enemy, is the most biggest enemy. So therefore, when we recognize this, if we can use normal methods to counter, if you be like that, you won't get job, you won't get money, you won't get car, it's okay. If we cannot use normal methods to counter, we have to use spiritual methods. If even by spiritual methods we cannot counter, it can only mean one thing. we didn't put the effort. Not everybody have to fail this way and that way. We didn't put effort. If we didn't put effort, why are we going to be angry? It will make us more angry, but we have to think, why do we get angry? We did it. We did it. That's have to think very carefully. Responsibility.
所以上次提到，当我们的愤怒是源自于我们很强烈的我爱的时候，那这样当这件事情发生的时候，唯一的结果就是你会带给周遭的人，基本上你会破坏你跟其他人之间的关系，不管是你所爱的人或者是不爱的人，你跟周遭人的这些关系都会被破坏。然后这就是所说的刚才所说的，你本来拥有的一些好的这些一些特性特质都会遭到破坏。其中一点就是你跟他人的一种关系，所以他人对于你的爱或者是关怀，然后给予你的一种安全感，到最后都会遭到破坏。所以这个就是最大的结果。当你的愤怒是源自于你的我爱，你有强大的自私，非常自私的心态。然后这没有关系，但是到你年老的时候特别的危险，因为当你老的时候，你的习性很强大的时候，你的这个愤怒已经没有办法，它已经完全的控制了你的整个心态。到这个时候其他人他们会远离你，他不会想要亲近你，不会想要接近你。所以第二点就是，当我们有很强大的自私的心态的时候，我们显现出愤怒的时候，不管我们多么想帮助其他的人，你的亲人也好，你的朋友也好，想要把他们带进佛法，或者是给予他们生活上的帮助，其实你没有办法带给他们任何帮助，因为他们所看到的你就是愤怒的显现，所以你能帮助别人的力量是很少的。所以我们应该这样思维，就是这样的一种愤怒，这样的一个我执我爱之心，是我们生命中最大的敌人。我们应该这样去思维。所以当世俗的观念伦理没有办法改变我们的心的时候，然后接着当我们的心灵上精神上的这些修行也失败的时候，没有办法帮助我们的时候，这只说明了一件事实，就是我们没有放进心力，我们没有放进足够的力量，就是去改变自己的，没有那个effort， 没有那个你没有放足够的心力进去。那这样子的话，我们必须思维，那到头来是谁的错？就是我们自己的错，没有别人去指责。
Lack of effort arises from self-cherishing mind. Other people do for me, I don't need to do.
所以当我们缺乏投入这样的心力的一种心态的时候，其实就是总是期望人家来替我做，人家来承担这样的心态。
When we engage in spiritual practice, one of the methods to attack this self-cherishing mind is mantra recitation. One of the methods.
所以其中一个修行的方法来对治我们这个我爱之心，强烈的我爱之心，就是透过念咒语、心咒，这只是其中一个方法。
Because mantra is words that are the essence of an enlightened being's consciousness. An enlightened being who had made great effort to become enlightened and be released from suffering. So when we do their mantra, we're invoking upon their enlightened energy, which is the culmination of 3 aeons of practice toward the destruction of the self-cherishing mind. So when we recite any mantra of any enlightened being, the effect should be that our self-cherishing mind becomes less.
所以刚刚提到心咒，心咒所指的就是诸佛菩萨所有觉悟者的他们的一种结晶，一种精华。为什么这样讲？因为当我们在持咒的时候，心咒的时候，其实我们实际在做的就是在祈求他们的降临，然后他们代表了 三大阿僧子劫就是很长一段时间的修行，他们注入很多的心力去修行，所以当我们在持咒的时候，其实我们是在得到他们的一种加持。
So, when we recite mantras, we obtain the essence of the enlightened being. We know their essence. By invoking upon them with the correct motivation, we collect a great amount of merit. The merit is collected, is like a bank account, then we can go shopping. If we have money, we have a bank account, we can go shopping. We have how much merit we have is how much shopping we can do and how much we can buy without even checking the price tag. So if we didn't work very hard and we have a very small savings, when we go shopping, we have to be very careful. Similarly, when we have a large merit bank, when we engage in the practice of wisdom, patience, effort, giving, meditative stabilization, etc., etc., it will be very easy for us to accomplish. Why? We have a huge bank of merits. So if we choose to use those merits to eradicate one's selfish mind, then the progress will be faster. Why will it be faster? We can use our bank funds toward anything we like. So therefore, the collection of merit example in reciting mantras is very powerful and very profound that helps us to overcome certain afflictive emotions.
所以，当我们发一个很纯正的一个动机发心的时候，我们就会得到很大的功德，就是 merit。为什么？这就有好比说你有一个银行户头，然后里面有足够的金钱，一样的道理。所以，当我们进行六波罗蜜的时候，就是上次所说的布施、持戒、忍辱、精进、禅定，然后最后得到智慧的时候，当我们行这六波罗蜜的时候，我们就会发现我们就会累积很广大的功德，然后有了功德之后，我们就可以很容易的挥霍，我们就可以用来对峙我们的这个敌人，也就是刚刚所说的这个很强烈的这个自爱的就是很爱自己的这份心。当你有足够的功德，所以这是一个重点。那同样的，当我们在持咒的时候，在持这个心咒的时候，我们得到诸佛菩萨的降临跟加持的时候，也是可以累积很大的功德，所以也可以用来对治这个我爱之心。
Having the effort, you make the money. Having the money, you can go buy what you want. Now you need to know where to go buy it. Where? Some things we don't have, we have to go abroad and import to buy. Similarly, when you collect the merit, you need to know where or how to direct it. And therefore, attending Dharma teachings is very essential and very important. Why? The more effort we attend Dharma teachings, we will definitely be able to identify where we should direct the merit to counter the self-cherishing mind.
所以接下来的问题就是，当我们有了这些功德的时候，我们或者是有金钱的时候，这个比喻来讲，那我们的问题就是，那我们这钱要花在哪里？那同样的道理，当我们有这些累积了足够的功德的时候，接下来的问题就是我们要怎么利用它来对治我们的这个心、我们的习气、我们的这个我爱之心。所以这个方向，这个敌人在哪里？那我们这个方法就是透过听闻开示、上师的开示跟指导，这样的过程当中，我们就可以发现我们就可以知道我们这个功德它可以用来如何去对治这个敌人。所以透过开示，透过聆听开示。
So therefore, when we recite any mantra, there are many things we can meditate or think or visualize. But what do we want immediately? What do we want immediately? We want our mind to be calm. We want to be able to take pressure. We don't want our mind to be sharp and quick. We want our mind to be easygoing, accepting. That's what we want. So if that's what we want immediately, we can see some result. People around us can see result. And when people around us can see result, they will say, what happened to you? And then you can teach them the Dharma. When you teach them, they will immediately come to Dharma. Why? You're living proof. So therefore, When we recite mantra, we're collecting the merit, but we need to know how to direct the merit. How do we do that? We need to understand the Dharma teachings. So when we receive the Dharma teachings and we're collecting merit by doing mantra recitation, during mantra recitation, what's very important is to be very honest, to think about one's life, and to take one's strongest afflictive emotion. Let's say it's anger, or let's say it's laziness, and think and meditate on how many problems we've created for others and ourselves. How many tears we've created for other people. How much disappointment we've created for other people. How many people have lost confidence. How many people became angry. How many people from that as another result, as another result, as another result. We have to meditate and think during reciting our mantra how much harm we have created. And when we meditate on that during Miktama, it's very, very powerful. Why? We can't lie to ourselves. We can't cover. We have to be very open. So while we're collecting the merit, we're also thinking about what we've done that we regret. And then in our meditations, we should see the harm that it has created. And in the past, if it's created harm, definitely in the future it will create more harm. So if we meditate on that while we're doing Miktama, instead of looking here, looking there, looking here, looking there, looking here, any small noise, we look here. Any small noise, we look there. This is a person who never, ever focuses or meditates. That type of person doing prayer who look here, look there, all the time look here, cannot sit still one, usually they're not a successful person. Usually. Why? It's a symptom. If you're successful, you have to be focused. If you're focused, your mind is very full of concentration. If you put that concentration, you can succeed. Success is concentration. So therefore, a person who cannot even sit still doing mantra, always looking, always moving, always here, always there, make faces, cannot control their body, they cannot do. What does that mean? They have no concentration. They have no focus. Therefore, this type of person usually will not be successful in normal life. Cannot support themselves, cannot take care of other people, always rely on other people's kindness. Usually, it matches that type of person. So therefore, when we do mantra practice, we should actually focus, not to focus too much in where we fall asleep. Why? That's the opposite end. Not to focus out so much that our mind is jumping around all the time, cannot relax. It has to be the middle way, which is to meditate again and again on, for example, our anger, or our selfishness, or our miserliness, or our irresponsible quality. To take that and one at a time and dissect and think from the time we can remember when we're very young up till now, how much harm it has done. And to think about that again and again and again. So doing meditation, mantra recitations, meditation. When we do meditation, doing mantra recitation, it's time to look inward. It's time to examine. And when we come across something we find very unpleasant, we don't turn away and run away. We think deeper and deeper and deeper and be honest and think where that come from. So when we do that again and again and again, what happens? It's like a mother telling us, wash your teeth, brush your teeth, or it'll become rotten. When she tells us enough, it becomes natural. Now, nobody needs to tell most of us to brush our teeth. Similarly, we cannot have such a kind mother all the time. We have to be our own kind mother. We have to focus by meditation, doing recitation of mantras, what harm we have done to others. If we do that, according to the Dalai Lama, you will see your mind change. If every year you're still disturbing other people, create misunderstanding, create anger, and make people go away, or always have the people talk to you and counsel you, always help you, you never help them, it's a sign you never, ever checked your own mind. How many years can we depend other people always help us, always rescue us, always give us solution, always do something for us? How many years? How many years? So like that, if we do this type of meditation during mantra recitation, then if you come to Miktama, it's very beneficial. And hence we have the puja to do 10 million. Why, in that time, you can do meditation? Why do you need to do so many? Because up till now, look how your mind have been. It is the problem maker for yourself. Even you're not a bad person, but if you don't remove these qualities, it makes you bad. So that's very, very important to realize. So during mantra recitation, we collect merit. We do meditation, honest meditation, on our own mind and our own worst quality first, and to examine the damage it has done, and to look at the people's tears and the disappointment and the pain and the unhappiness and the hurt we have created for that. Again and again, very honestly. And then you'll see your mind start to separate from that type of mind.
所以，刚刚上师提到，当我们在持咒的时候，你可以进行很多观想，很多本尊，很多诸佛菩萨的观想。但是我们要的最快、最迅速的这个结果是什么？就是我们会得到一个比较平静的心，然后我们会学会放下，学会放轻松。但是这样的一个结果，其他人就看得到。而且其他人，刚刚我们所说，你想要去帮助其他的人，这个时候就会有他的利益。当你进行持咒的时候，因为你的心整个人平静下来，所以你可以，人家看到了这个是一个实实在在的例子，他就会被吸引过来。所以在这样的结果，你就可以帮助其他人。那当你在持咒的时候，马上会得到的结果就是你可以刚刚所说累积巨大的功德。那同样的，第二点就是当你在持咒的时候，你必须去做一种很深的一种禅定，应该说是思维 ，OK， 去思考就是思维，而且要很诚实的对待自己，看待自己内心的问题在哪里。当你在持咒的这个时候，然后你怎么样去对治？你可以从因为我们有很多的问题，很多的症状，但是我们总是会有一个比较特别强大的，有些人是愤怒，有些人是执着等等。所以你看你自己最强大的这个造成你痛苦的这个因是什么？可能是愤怒。那这样的话，当你在持咒的时候，你就去思维说，你由于你的这个症状，你让多少周边爱你的人、关心你的人，你让他们失望，有多少的人你令他们失望。然后当你在做，所以这是一种等于是一种忏悔。当你在进行持咒的过程当中，你必须去学会忏悔。那同样的，当我们讲到 Mitsema 的时候，就是上师瑜伽的时候，有些人他们当他们来 Mitsema 的时候，他们会好像东看看西看看，没有很专心。通常这样的人，他就反映出一个事实，就是其实他们可能在生活当中也不是很成功的，因为他们很容易让自己的心分散注意力，很容易就不知道自己的心在何处，所以这样的人缺乏集中力，那当然就会反映出他们的工作不会很成功。这只是一个 general 一个大致上的一个情况。然后通常我们在进行持咒的时候，我们要学会培养我们的集中力，但是不能对内，我们又不能集中太多，因为这样会造成我们有点想睡觉，但是也不能够太集中于外在的东西，因为这样的话就等于我们所说的你会分散你的注意力。所以我们必须取一个中道，一个 middle way。这个中道就是学会去忏悔，学会去看自己内心当中一个步骤去慢慢的思维，到底你的这个过程，你的这个愤怒的心态很不好的心态带给了多少人的痛苦，这是第一点。第二点就是你必须去看这些症状它的因在哪里，它的苦因在哪里，你也必须去思维。这个是达赖喇嘛法王也有说的，当我们能够做到这一点的时候，我们的心就会改变，但是你必须去诚心的忏悔。如果你不做的话对不起，这也就是为什么我们现在要做这个1000万次的这个 Mitsema， 因为它是这么的长，这么久的一段时间，但唯有这样久的时间，才可以让我们去培养出这样的一个思维的这样的一个功课。 所以回到这里就是2点。第一点就是当我们在持咒的时候，我们会累积很大的功德。第二点就是我们一定要记得，在持咒的时候，我们要学会去思维，学会去禅定。
So therefore, the question is, what should we visualize, or what should we do, what should we be thinking about when we recite mantras? The answer can be very easy, but the answer won't penetrate your mind if you don't have a basis behind the answer. So just giving an answer, example, if I just say to you, oh, take your worst emotion and concentrate and think about that, but without knowing the interconnection of how this emotion creates unhappiness and how it becomes an endless cycle that goes round and round, without understanding that, and simply give you an answer, oh, think about your worst emotion, then you won't progress. You won't progress. So when a question arises like that, you always have to explain to people or explain to other people the reasons, the basis, why, its effects, and then the answer will become stable. So when the answer is stable in your mind, even if you go somewhere where there's not even one Dharma practitioner and you're surrounded by 100,000 people who don't believe in Dharma, who fight you and debate with you, it will never turn your mind around. In fact, if you debate with them, you can turn their mind around. Why? Because your practice, your mantra, your meditation is based on checking everything out and it makes sense. So if I tell you 2 plus 2 is 4, you don't understand. I put 4 grains of rice and I put 2 here, and I put 2 together. Then I say, see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Even if you go to another place who don't know how to count, they say, no, it's 3. They say it's 6, it's 8. You cannot move your mind. Those whose mind move very quick or their emotions move very quick is one who doesn't know the Dharma, or one who doesn't practice the Dharma, or one whose mind doesn't practice the Dharma. If you know the Dharma, your mind cannot change. Never. It can never. In fact, it increases and becomes stronger. And if you know the Dharma, your good qualities increase. Like it says, like a waxing moon. Every year. So when you get older and older, you become better and better and better and better and better. Normal people who don't study Dharma, who become old, if they're good people, they have money, they can take care of people, they can give some advice, that's all. People with Dharma who become old, they become like a light that shines in the darkness. That makes a difference in many people's lives. Chepu means now and in the future. So the thing is, during meditation, during mantra recitation, don't just recite something holy. Use that power and the merit acquired. Use that to actually make a difference in your mind. And therefore, when you do retreats, prostrations, recitations, you will see your mind change. A lot of people I've seen in the past, after retreats, they change quite dramatically. Very, very much. Why? Because during retreat, they were very honest with themselves. So during mantra recitation, look here, look there, look here, always, even little noise, always like that, look around. It's a very clear symptom. Very clear symptom. Very, very clear. So control. Focus. The problem and entertainment is not here. It's all here. So during reciting a miksama, you're very lucky. Why? The mantra is not short or long. It's what you do during the mantra. It's what you do. And the mantra invokes upon 3 very, very incredible bodhisattvas, not one. So if we do it well, it has incredible benefits. And those are just basic preliminary benefits I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the greater ones because it's connected to higher Dharma. Bigger results. Much bigger results. Don't think just reciting miksama makes your mind happy and realize what you're doing wrong. Much more than that. But I just give you something basic.
所以，当我们说，假如上师只是说，当你在持咒的时候，你应该做什么的时候，他只是单单给你一个答案的时候，其实这个利益、这个帮助是非常少的，因为他的答案、他的解释不会进入你的心，他不会渗透到你的心里面。为什么？因为其实他给你一个解答的时候，给你一个方法的时候，他必须给予你逻辑，这个背后的逻辑，这背后的理由，为什么要这样做？ 当他可以给你很全面的一个解答的时候，一个方法，还有这背后的逻辑的时候，这个答案才会在你心中留下这个影响，它才会有它的它才会渗透到你的心里面。所以，当你这个答案渗透到你心里面的时候，它就成为你的一部分，修行的一部分。那当人家来干扰你的时候，或者是比如说你跟其他修行层次比较低的人的时候，他们会带给你一些不好的影响的时候，你因为有了佛法渗透到你的心态，你就不会那么容易的动摇，你就知道什么是正确的，什么不是正确的。所以一个有修行的人，他的心是很平稳的，他不会很容易分散他自己的注意力，他知道他要的是什么，他不会轻易的受到其他人的干扰。所以同时呢，一个有修行的人，他的好的这个特质就是培养出来，譬如慈悲心啊、智慧等等，他只会增加而不会减少。一个真正有修行的人，最后当我们进行闭关的时候，这里有提到闭关，因为当上师提到说有很多人他们在闭关之后，就整个人有很大的改变，个性上思想上有很大的改变。为什么？因为在闭关的期间，他们非常诚恳地看待自己，到底自己的问题在哪里，然后他学会去控制自己，学会去增加自己的集中力，然后去对峙自己内心的这个问题。在闭关的这个期间，同样的，当我们在做密增玛的时候，我们也应该做同样的这个行为，因为重点不是这个咒语的长短，而是说在持咒的这个期间，你所进行的是哪一些。所以除了累积功德之外，这个大家都明白，但其实更深一层含义，就是在持咒的过程当中，我们必须去进行思维刚刚上师所提到的这些，我们内心的敌人是什么。
Religion is real. The Buddhas are real. Religious practice is real. Why? Because compassion is real. Because wisdom is real. Because skillful means is real. Because caring for others is real. Because responsibility is real. Therefore, religion or religious practice is real. Why? Religious practice helps us to develop those qualities. And those qualities exist, and they are real. And if we have those qualities, happiness is real, because there is happiness. Very simple.
所以宗教它是真实存在的。为什么？因为透过宗教心灵上的修行，我们可以培养出慈悲，培养出智慧。那我们知道慈悲跟智慧它是真实存在的。所以宗教心灵上的修行，它也是真的，它不是虚假的。同样的，我们要学会去承担自己的责任，因为当我们做到这一点的时候，我们就会培养出慈悲，培养出智慧，最后所导致的结果就是我们会得到究竟的快乐。所以这个快乐本身，究竟的快乐也是真实的，不是虚假的。
Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your translation. It'll be good practice later for China. It's very good.
Very good, very clear explanation.
Good. Now, show yourself results. Show yourself results. All the things you find problematic in your lives now, let it not be like that the same time this year, next year. Every year you get older, have some proof that you're older. Your body become older, but your mind also must become older. Have some proof. Don't let another year pass being exactly the same situation as you always are, inside and outside. Why? Because happiness is real. It's real. Therefore, religion is real. Don't forget that. It's very simple. Very, very simple. I didn't say Buddhism is real. I said religion is real. Yeah, translate.
所以当提到这个重点，就是 当你人都会成长，都会变老，都会年老。但是当我们的怎么讲，物质上的身体在改变、在衰老的时候，我们必须明白，我们的心、我们的精神生活也应该要有所成长，而不是停留在儿时的时代。它必须随着年龄的增长，同样的，你的心的成熟，还有承担的这个能力，也应该随之增长，而不要停留在年少的时候。只要记住一点就是因为究竟的快乐是真实的，所以心灵上的修行，它也是有它真实的这个意义在。
And one can push oneself on the basis of concentrating on the disbenefits of our negative qualities. Meditating on our negative qualities should not make us depressed. It should push us to become better and to change. And that's why we do mantra combined with it. Because mantra is not meant to make you depressed. It's meant to make you happy. So when people want to commit suicide, they want to cut their wrist or something, and they think about they're bad, they're unsuccessful, they lost this, they forgot that, it makes depression. So when we do mantras, when we think about our negative qualities, the point is to remove the disease, to become happy, and to make other people happy. And so happiness is real. Therefore, religious practice is real. Religious practice is real is because happiness is real.
所以，当我们在持咒的时候，我们必须去思维那些造成我们不快乐的一些苦因，那些负面的因素是什么？负面的这个性质是哪一些？不是去让我们感觉到很无助、很沮丧，然后就放弃，而是让我们知道，有了这些负面的心态。我们可以去理解到这些负面的心态会带给我们还有周遭的人的一些不良的一些不好的一些事情 ，OK？ 所以当我们会这样看待的时候，它应该会让我们学会更积极的去改变我们的心，这才是它最终的目的。所以还是回到那一点，我们必须相信究竟的快乐是真实存在的。所以呢，我们也应该相信心灵层次的修行。必须去学会去接受它，而去实现它。
And everybody wants happiness. Everybody.
每一个人都要快乐，都在追求快乐。
Shukijabo Songapa Josunampa Pewala Gigi Sangwasiwada Antukin Malu Shangwasho Dadan Shingi Dusundan Rewa Shokne Latin Kewa Losandrapa E Tampa Urin Wagyu Chi